The grand palace of the Dragon Kingdom had never seen such neglect. Ornate halls and golden spires shimmered in the sunlight, yet in the shadowed wing of the palace, an unassuming figure stirred quietly through dust and debris. His name was Elias, a human cleaner hired for his diligence, though most dragons in the court considered him invisible, beneath notice, or simply unworthy of attention. He moved carefully across the polished marble floors, sweeping away dust that had gathered in the forgotten corners, polishing plaques that bore the names of ancestors, and quietly humming as he worked. It was in one of these abandoned chambers, behind a screen of tattered velvet drapes, that Elias first noticed movement. A faint, sorrowful whimper that didn't belong to the usual sounds of the palace. Curious, he stepped closer and discovered a small, shivering dragon, scales dulled from neglect and one claw awkwardly bent as if injured long ago. The creature's eyes, a piercing sapphire that gleamed even in shadow, stared at him with both fear and longing. Elias froze, feeling a pang of empathy that transcended his role as a mere cleaner. "Hey, you're not supposed to be here alone, are you?" he whispered softly. The dragon whimpered again, weakly attempting to lift its head. It was small for its age, clearly a prince of the kingdom, yet ignored by every guardian, advisor, and member of the court. The palace had deemed him unimportant, a liability, and left him to suffer quietly in the corners. Elias's heart ached at the injustice of it. Gently, he approached, kneeling so as not to intimidate the young prince. "I won't hurt you," he said. Slowly, the dragon inched forward, sniffing his hand with hesitant curiosity. Elias could feel the creature's fragile heartbeat beneath its chest. "You need help," he murmured, "and I can give it to you." With careful precision, he fashioned a small makeshift sling from his cleaning cloths to support the prince's injured claw. He cleaned the minor wounds with water he had heated in a tiny kettle, whispering soft reassurances as the dragon blinked up at him, trusting him in ways it hadn't trusted anyone else in the palace. For the first time, the prince felt seen, noticed, and safe. Days passed, and Elias returned faithfully, bringing food, warmth, and attention to the young dragon. Each encounter was met with cautious excitement. The dragon began to anticipate his visits, moving toward him when he entered the room, eyes bright with recognition. He named him Kale, after the sky whose freedom Kale could only dream of from the shadowed chamber. Elias spent hours carefully tending to the prince's injuries, providing nutrients and teaching him gentle exercises to strengthen his limbs. In the process, he discovered something remarkable. Kale was incredibly intelligent, perceptive of human intention, and capable of understanding subtle gestures and tones. Word of a human who cares for the ignored prince began to ripple quietly through the palace staff. Some whispered admiration, others muttered disdain. Many dragons saw a human interacting with a royal as unthinkable, even blasphemous. Yet Elias remained undeterred. He knew that what he offered, patience, care, and respect, was worth far more than titles or riches. Kale, in turn, began to grow stronger under his care, scales regaining luster, claws straightening, and wings twitching in anticipation of the first tentative flights. They developed a rhythm, an unspoken language of trust and cooperation. When Elias entered the room, Kale would nuzzle against him. When Kale chirped in curiosity, Elias would respond with gentle explanations or playful encouragement. One evening, as Elias tucked Kale into a padded corner of the chamber, the young dragon murmured something astonishing. A soft, garbled attempt at speech, repeating syllables that resembled the words Elias had whispered during the day. "HL, help!" the dragon tried, eyes wide and pleading. Elias's heart leapt. The prince was not only learning to trust but trying to communicate, bridging the gap between dragon and human with nascent language. He leaned close, murmuring, "I'm here. I'll always help you." Kale blinked, a faint ember of fire curling from his tiny nostrils in what seemed like gratitude. In that moment, the bond between human and dragon became undeniable, one born not of royalty or obligation, but of compassion, respect, and shared understanding. But the palace was not idle. The young dragon's absence from courtly attention had not gone unnoticed indefinitely. Advisors began to murmur about the missing prince, wondering why he never appeared in ceremonies or royal lessons. Some speculated that he was ill. Others suggested that he was weak and unworthy of the throne. No one suspected that a human cleaner had found him first, offering care and protection where the court had failed. Elias understood the risks. Discovery could mean exile, punishment, or worse, for both himself and Kale. Yet he did not waver. The Dragon Prince had been ignored long enough. It was time he learned he was valued, and that someone beyond royal titles saw his worth. Over the following weeks, Elias taught Kale more than survival. He taught him to navigate the palace corridors safely, to observe without drawing attention, and even to exercise his wings discreetly within the chamber. They practiced gentle bursts of fire that would not alarm the guards, and small flights between rafters that strengthened Kale's body and coordination. Elias marveled at the dragon's resilience, recalling the first day he found him shivering and abandoned. Now, Kale was playful, curious, and intelligent, with a spark of mischief in his gaze that had been missing before. He would chirp, flap, and experiment, and Elias would guide, correct, and celebrate every success. Their sanctuary, hidden in the shadows of a palace that ignored the prince, had become a haven for learning, trust, and growth. Then came the day of recognition, though neither Elias nor Kale expected it. A palace servant, curious about whispers and faint sounds of dragon activity, peeked into the chamber. The servant froze, startled to see the young prince flapping his wings, claws steady, and scales shining. Elias stepped forward calmly, and the servant gasped. Word spread quickly through the staff that a human had cared for the ignored prince, and reactions varied from awe to disbelief. When the royal family finally learned, their initial anger gave way to astonishment. Here was a prince, once dismissed, now healthy, strong, and ready to reclaim his rightful place. All because a human cleaner had chosen to see him when no one else would. That night, as Kale curled against Elias, warm and safe, the Dragon Prince finally spoke a full sentence. "Thank you?" The words were simple, but the weight of gratitude and trust was immense. Elias whispered back, "You're welcome, Kale. I always believed in you." The palace outside continued its routines, unaware that the prince they had ignored had been saved, nurtured, and taught to stand tall. Not by grandeur, riches, or ceremony, but by the unwavering kindness of a human who had refused to overlook the smallest, weakest, and most ignored. The bond forged in the shadows of neglect was now unbreakable, and both human and dragon understood, in a way no one else could, that true loyalty and courage often arise from places the world forgets to see. Dragon. With Kale growing stronger every day, the palace halls that had once felt suffocating now seemed like an expansive playground for the Dragon Prince, though one that had to be navigated with extreme care. Elias continued his work, quietly tending to Kale's needs while maintaining the guise of a simple cleaner, all the while teaching the young dragon lessons that went far beyond healing. He taught him patience, observation, and caution, skills the prince would need to survive not only the physical challenges of the palace, but also the treacherous currents of dragon politics. Kale was quick to learn, his intelligence surpassing Elias's expectations. He could mimic movements, recall paths through the labyrinthine corridors, and even anticipate the patrol patterns of palace guards. Every small success made him bolder, yet Elias ensured that the prince never overstepped, balancing freedom with safety in a delicate dance that required both human foresight and dragon instinct. Their mornings began early, with Elias carefully preparing food that would strengthen Kale's muscles and enhance his growth. Meals were no longer simple scraps but carefully chosen ingredients that balanced nutrition and energy, mixed with precision and a touch of care that only a human who truly understood the creature could provide. Kale ate with growing enthusiasm, chirping and nudging Elias when he sensed new dishes or subtle variations. During the afternoons, they practiced flight within the palace's higher chambers, using beams, alcoves, and chandeliers as obstacles to hone Kale's dexterity. At first, the dragon stumbled and struggled to maintain balance, wings flapping awkwardly against stone and silk, but under Elias's patient guidance, each flight became smoother, stronger, and more controlled. The bond between them grew deeper with every wing beat, every shared moment of triumph or failure. One afternoon, a ripple of tension swept through the palace corridors. The king's advisors had begun to notice Kale's absence from certain ceremonial duties and whispered suspicions that the young prince had been ill or sidelined intentionally. Elias, aware of the potential danger, guided Kale through hidden passages and chambers that even palace staff rarely used. He taught the prince to move silently, to observe without being observed, and to trust instinct over fear. They practiced subtle gestures and signals, tiny movements of tail or wings, quiet chirps and puffs of smoke, that allowed communication without alerting others. Kale responded with uncanny acuity, quickly understanding the nuances of Elias's instructions, and soon they could coordinate complex maneuvers with near-perfect synchronization. It was a form of education unavailable in any royal classroom, a lesson in survival, trust, and independence, crafted through human ingenuity and draconic instinct. Then came the first test of their teamwork under threat. A group of ambitious court dragons, envious of Kale's potential as the heir, conspired to humiliate him during a minor ceremonial event. They intended to show the prince as weak, unworthy of attention, and unfit to lead. Elias had anticipated this possibility, and he had prepared. Hidden in the rafters and behind alcoves, Kale and Elias watched the proceedings, ready to intervene if necessary. As the rivals attempted to corner him, Kale instinctively flared his wings, creating a display of size and power that drew gasps from the crowd. Elias, signaling subtly with a flick of his wrist and a shift of his stance, guided Kale through a precise sequence of movements, dodging, sidestepping, and asserting dominance without causing unnecessary harm. The rivals were left baffled and humiliated by the prince's unexpected skill, unaware that every step was guided by a human cleaner's insight and careful preparation. Word of the dragon prince's unusual strength and precision began to spread quietly through the court, reaching ears that had once dismissed him. Some whispered admiration, while others plotted anew, unwilling to accept that a human, an outsider, had played such a pivotal role in shaping the future heir. Elias, ever vigilant, continued to navigate the palace's complex web of politics, using every tool at his disposal to shield Kale from harm, both physical and social. He crafted hidden refuges, manipulated schedules to avoid confrontations, and even devised subtle mechanical devices to divert attention when danger loomed. The young prince, now growing taller and more confident, trusted him implicitly, relying on his guidance while learning to assert his own will. Together, they were not merely surviving, they were evolving, mastering challenges that would have overwhelmed most dragons alone. The dragon's personality flourished under Elias's care. Kale's playful side emerged in small bursts, a mischievous flick of fire, a daring leap across the rafters, or a teasing chirp that made Elias laugh. These moments were balanced by intense focus when lessons demanded it, and Elias marveled at the duality of the young dragon, capable of both playfulness and precision, loyalty and cunning. During quiet evenings, Elias would recount stories of human ingenuity, machinery, and distant lands, speaking softly as Kale listened intently, occasionally letting out chirps or small bursts of flame in response. In these moments, the prince seemed almost human in his curiosity and understanding, bridging the vast cultural gap between dragons and humans with a shared bond built on trust, care, and the patience of someone who had refused to overlook him when the world had done so. Their growing reputation caught the attention of the royal family, including the king himself. Unlike the scheming advisors, the monarch approached with curiosity rather than malice. Observing the prince's skill, intelligence, and composure, the king demanded an explanation. Elias stood quietly, holding his ground, and spoke with measured honesty. He had found Kale abandoned and ignored, and through care, guidance, and patience, had nurtured him to health and strength. The king, initially skeptical, witnessed a demonstration of Kale's abilities. The controlled flight, precise flame bursts, and disciplined movements that were a testament not only to the prince's potential but also to Elias's unwavering dedication. For the first time, the palace recognized that a human, a mere cleaner, had transformed the fate of the Dragon Prince. Yet, despite recognition from the highest authority, the palace's politics remained perilous. Rival dragons, jealous courtiers, and curious outsiders continued to watch, testing boundaries and probing weaknesses. Elias and Kale adapted, learning to anticipate threats before they arose, using intelligence, stealth, and collaboration to stay one step ahead. Each challenge reinforced their bond. The prince learning strategy and restraint, the human mastering ingenuity and protection. Their sanctuary, once hidden in the neglected wing of the palace, had become a hub of resilience and preparation. A place where loyalty and courage were nurtured as carefully as muscles and wings. By the end of their second year together, Kale had transformed into a dragon worthy of his lineage. Not through royal privilege, but through the combination of survival, training, and the unwavering guidance of Elias. And Elias, for his part, had become far more than a cleaner. He was a mentor, protector, and friend. A human who had taken what the world discarded and turned it into something extraordinary. Together, they had rewritten the rules of the palace, proving that even the ignored and abandoned could rise to greatness when met with patience, care, and unwavering belief. The spring air carried a tension that Elias could sense even before the sounds reached the palace walls. News had spread beyond the gilded spires that a dragon prince, previously ignored and hidden away, had grown strong under the care of a human. Some whispered admiration, but others, hungrier and more ruthless, saw an opportunity. A band of rogue hunters, led by a notorious warlord who trafficked dragon scales and captured young dragons for profit, had set their sights on Kale. Elias, ever vigilant, had long anticipated that the outside world would eventually breach the fragile security of the palace's hidden wing, but nothing could fully prepare him for the sight of armored figures moving through the surrounding gardens at dusk. He crouched beside Kale, whose wings flexed nervously, amber eyes reflecting both fear and determination. Elias whispered, "Remember everything we practiced. Trust yourself, trust me." Kale's small roar echoed softly against the palace stones, a mixture of warning and courage, and the two prepared to face the threat together. The intruders moved with precision, their nets designed to restrain even a full-grown dragon, while specialized gas devices aimed to sedate creatures as large as Kale. Elias had little time, but he had prepared contingencies. Hidden tripwires connected to overturned barrels, mechanical contraptions built from scraps of the palace's forgotten workshops, and small reflective surfaces that could disorient the hunters with sudden flashes. He counted the intruders, estimating their speed and approach, while Kale crouched low, wings tensing for the first strike. Elias whispered, "On my signal." And in that instant, everything depended on instinct, timing, and the unspoken bond they had nurtured over months of training, care, and trust. As the first hunter approached the chamber door, a barrel tipped over, scattering metal scraps in a loud crash that startled the intruders. Kale lunged instinctively, breathing a controlled stream of flame that singed the edges of the doorframe without endangering the stone walls. Elias moved with him, adjusting mechanisms to block paths and funnel intruders toward disadvantageous angles. The battle was chaotic yet precise, a synchronized dance of human ingenuity and dragon instinct. One hunter lunged with a net, but Kale twisted midair, claws extended, batting the net aside while Elias released a hidden pulley, sending a net of his own to entangle the attacker's legs. Another tried to sneak in through a side corridor, only to be tripped by a wire Elias had set weeks earlier. Every move they had practiced in secrecy now came alive, a testament to countless hours of preparation, trust, and unwavering coordination. Despite their success, the fight was far from over. The warlord, realizing the prince's unusual strength, advanced personally, wielding a specialized weapon designed to paralyze dragons. Kale, sensing the gravity of the situation, spread his wings wide, creating a protective shield around Elias. He let out a roar that resonated through the halls, warning the intruder and drawing every ounce of courage he possessed. Elias, heart pounding, activated a hidden trap, a series of collapsing beams and swinging chains that created a chaotic maze, slowing the warlord's approach. The prince darted through the obstacles with remarkable agility, fire puffing from his nostrils in warning bursts, while Elias manipulated levers and pulleys to amplify the confusion. The battle was a perfect fusion of mind and instinct, a dance of survival that neither the palace guards nor the rogue hunters could have anticipated. By the time the conflict ended, the intruders lay tangled, disarmed, or fled into the night, leaving the chamber eerily quiet except for the labored breathing of Elias and Kale. The young dragon's scales shimmered with a mix of exertion and pride, while his wings quivered slightly from fatigue. Elias knelt beside him, hand on his chest, feeling the rapid heartbeat that matched his own. "You were incredible," he whispered. Kale pressed his head against Elias, a soft trill echoing like a whisper of gratitude, a bond unbroken by chaos or fear. In that moment, the cleaner realized that their relationship had matured into something extraordinary. Not merely protector and dependent, but a partnership of equals, forged in adversity, trust, and mutual courage. In the aftermath, the palace was abuzz with whispers. The advisors, who had once dismissed the ignored prince, could not ignore the reports of his resilience and the humans' involvement. The king himself arrived to witness Kale's strength firsthand, and Elias explained calmly the necessity of preparation, strategy, and care that had protected the prince. The monarch, though proud of his son, was astonished by the depth of Elias's devotion and intelligence. For the first time, recognition was not limited to the prince. The human who had nurtured, guided, and protected him was acknowledged as a critical part of the prince's survival. Though some courtiers still harbored envy, even hostility, the undeniable truth was clear. The human had saved the dragon prince, and in doing so had reshaped the course of the kingdom. In the quiet days that followed, Elias and Kale worked to fortify their sanctuary further. They created new hidden passages, reinforced chambers, and developed signal systems that could alert them to danger without drawing attention. Training intensified. Flight exercises through increasingly complex obstacle courses, controlled bursts of fire to simulate combat, and puzzles that required Kale to use both intellect and instinct. The young dragon thrived, growing larger and more confident, while Elias refined his strategies and planning. Together, they became a force that no intruder or court schemer could easily challenge. Each success built confidence, each lesson strengthened their bond, and each shared moment of trust reaffirmed the lesson that care and dedication could achieve what status or wealth alone could never. Beyond physical training, Elias introduced Kale to concepts previously unknown to him. He explained human innovation, machinery, and problem-solving strategies, emphasizing patience, foresight, and adaptability. Kale absorbed these lessons quickly, combining them with his natural draconic instincts to develop strategies that were both inventive and lethal when necessary. Their evenings were often spent in quiet reflection, Elias recounting tales of human ingenuity, Kale responding with small bursts of flame, chirps, and gestures, communicating in a language that grew richer and more nuanced by the day. Through these moments, they discovered that true strength was not merely muscle or firepower, but the synergy of mind, heart, and trust between two very different beings. As the year progressed, the Dragon Prince continued to grow, not only in size but in wisdom, courage, and independence. Kale began to explore the palace with greater confidence, learning to navigate corridors, avoid dangers, and even assert himself in the presence of skeptical courtiers. His interactions with humans and dragons alike revealed a maturity beyond his years, yet one tempered by the loyalty and guidance of the human who had saved him. For Elias, watching the transformation was both humbling and inspiring. He understood that while he had given Kale life, guidance, and protection, the dragon had taught him resilience, trust, and the profound rewards of seeing potential where others saw none. And yet, despite all victories, Elias knew that the challenges ahead were far from over. The rogue hunters were still at large, whispers of envy and treachery circulated in the court, and the world outside remained unpredictable and dangerous. But for the first time, Elias felt a quiet confidence. Kale was no longer helpless or ignored. He was a dragon prince capable of defending himself, guided by the wisdom, strategy, and unwavering devotion of a human who had refused to look away. Together, They had faced threats that would have broken most, survived, and emerged stronger, their bond unshakable, their trust unbroken. And as they sat side by side in the quiet of their sanctuary, the first light of dawn casting a golden glow across the chamber, both human and dragon understood a truth that neither palace decree nor courtly politics could ever deny. Together, they were unstoppable, a force shaped by compassion, courage, and the undeniable power of belief in one another. Dragon. The day of reckoning arrived quietly at first, a subtle shift in the palace atmosphere that even the courtiers failed to notice. Kale, now nearly fully grown, moved through the halls with grace and confidence, his wings brushing against the high ceilings, scales gleaming like polished amber in the morning sun. Yet Elias knew that the young dragon's true test was not merely survival or training exercises. It was the world outside the palace, a realm filled with rivals, envious dragons, and humans whose intentions were often far from noble. He had prepared for every contingency, but no plan could completely anticipate the complexities of destiny. The king had declared a public ceremony in honor of the dragon prince's coming of age, a moment that would reveal him to the court and to the world beyond, and Elias felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. Kale's eyes met his, bright with determination but shadowed by uncertainty, and Elias whispered, "No matter what happens, remember what we've learned. Trust yourself, trust me, and you'll face this day as you were meant to." The ceremony began under the open sky, with dragons of noble blood, human dignitaries, and spectators from distant lands assembled to witness the prince's formal recognition. Murmurs of skepticism rippled through the crowd. Many doubted that a dragon who had been hidden, ignored, and supposedly weak could command respect. Yet as Kale stepped forward, each movement radiated strength and intelligence. He paused, wings partially unfurled, scanning the assembly with piercing eyes that seemed to weigh each observer's intentions. Elias remained at the edge of the platform, invisible to most but ever present in the prince's mind, a silent anchor of calm and strategy. When the first challenger, a proud, older dragon known for challenging heirs, stepped forward to intimidate him, Kale did not flinch. Instead, he executed a precise maneuver they had practiced countless times in secret, displaying control of his fire, agility, and intellect in a performance that left the court gasping. Elias, though hidden, allowed himself a quiet smile. The dragon prince was no longer the abandoned hatchling. He was a force to be reckoned with. The spectacle escalated quickly when a group of envious court dragons, long irritated by the human's role in shaping Kale, attempted to provoke him. They swooped and circled, breathing fire and creating chaos, expecting fear or hesitation. But Kale, guided by instinct, training, and the silent influence of Elias's lessons, responded with unmatched precision. He dodged flames, neutralized threats without causing harm to innocents, and executed maneuvers that demonstrated both strength and discipline. The court erupted in awe, many realizing for the first time that the ignored prince had been trained by someone with unparalleled wisdom, someone whose guidance transcended bloodlines and privilege. Elias, standing quietly behind a veil of pillars, marveled at the synchronicity between dragon and human, the culmination of months of care, strategy, and trust realized in full display. However, the final challenge was imminent. A warlord from a distant kingdom, having heard rumors of the dragon prince's unique abilities, appeared with an army of mercenaries and hunting dragons, intent on claiming Kale as his prize. Panic swept through the assembly as chaos threatened to overtake the carefully staged ceremony. Elias acted instinctively, signaling Kale with a subtle tilt of his hand and a low whistle. The dragon responded immediately, flaring wings and flames with precision, guiding humans and dragons alike to safety while engaging the intruders strategically. It was a battle of intellect, agility, and raw power, Elias using his ingenuity to manipulate the environment, and Kale using strength and instinct to neutralize threats. The combination of human foresight and draconic instinct overwhelmed the warlord's forces, forcing retreat after retreat, until the intruders fled, leaving the ceremony grounds intact and the prince standing tall. After the battle, silence fell over the assembly. Eyes that had doubted the human and the dragon now glimmered with respect and awe. The king approached, pride and astonishment evident in his gaze, and knelt before both Kale and Elias. "You have proven not only the strength of our heir," he declared, "but the value of loyalty, courage, and wisdom that transcends species and station." Elias, typically reserved, felt a warmth of recognition he had never known, and Kale's sapphire eyes glimmered with quiet gratitude. For the first time, the prince was celebrated not as a neglected child but as a hero in his own right. His abilities and character a testament to what care, patience, and unwavering belief could achieve. In the weeks that followed, the palace transformed. Kale assumed his role as Dragon Prince with dignity and strength, yet he remained humble, aware that his survival and success owed as much to Elias as to his own abilities. The human, once invisible and dismissed, was now revered in subtle ways by the court, respected for wisdom, courage, and the foresight to nurture the ignored prince. Together, they strengthened the palace's defenses, educated other young dragons, and subtly reshaped traditions to value character and potential over mere lineage. The bond between human and dragon became legendary, a story whispered across lands and generations as a testament to trust, care, and the power of recognition where the world had once ignored. And so, in the quiet of the evening, when the palace was calm and the sky painted in golds and purples, Kale perched atop the highest spire, wings outstretched, reflecting the light of the setting sun. Elias stood at the base, looking up at the dragon who had once been abandoned and ignored, now fully realized in strength, wisdom, and spirit. Their journey had transformed them both. One had given care and guidance, the other had given courage and loyalty, and together, they had reshaped the destiny of a kingdom. Kale nudged Elias gently with his snout, a silent thank you that carried the weight of everything they had endured and achieved. Elias smiled, patting the dragon's scaled shoulder. "We did it, Kale," he whispered. "We've changed your story, and ours together." The prince emitted a soft, triumphant roar, one that echoed across the palace and into the hearts of all who witnessed it, announcing that the ignored dragon prince had not only survived but thrived, guided by a human who dared to see the impossible and act with courage when the world had looked away. "Dragon,"